Welcome to another episode of the Tea and Trails podcast. My name is Eddie Sutton, SILVA Northern Traverse podium finisher.
And I'm Gary Thwaites. Totally.
That sets the tone.
And I'm Gary Thwaites, totally exhausted. Dad of two, used to be ultra runner, and now just a wizened old shell of a man. I did research. We talked last week about me crushing the miners' strike disco, 1984.
Go on.
Well, if you were to go back in time, you could be strutting your stuff to Agadoo, classics like Agadoo, Relax, The Reflex, and Careless Whisper. I wonder if people will look back on 2024. Now, Agadoo, sketchy, but they're pretty heavy hitters, those songs. They are hot. I don't know what 2024's hits are going to look like in another...
This ain't Texas. They don't hold them. Anyway, let's go. Thank you to our Patreon partners who share some awesome gift discount codes with our patrons. Here we go. Here's the list, guys. Get your notebook and pencil out. We have Precision Fuel and Hydration, Velo Forte, Protein Rebel, Tiki Boo, Mountain Fuel, Outdoor Active, Silver Sweden, Active Root, the Centurion Running Store, sportshoes.com, Big Bobble Hats, X Miles, Fawnside Farm Cottages, Yugoku Projects, Red Bear Sports, The Album App, Retainer Group Cycle Protection, Summit Crazy, Beat It Sports, Lumi Activewear, and Ultra Trail 2. Extra shout out to Precision Fuel Hydration, Velo Forte, and Protein Rebel. We use their products every month to help fuel, hydrate, and recover. Another new Patreon partner too. Patrons receive 20% off at Hellfire events. Loads of races and different distances to choose from. So pop over to hellfireevents.com to have a look. If you'd like to save some money, support the podcast and our partners, please consider joining Patreon. Couldn't do it without you. Also, pop over to Summit Crazy if you'd like to buy some awesome TM Trails merch.
Thanks to Precision Fuel and Hydration for sponsoring this show and another cracking newsletter. It's all about caffeine with lots of tips on how to incorporate it into your strategy. Curious, we'll talk about it later, Eddie, but yeah, how did caffeine feature
One caffeine gel, went straight down, came straight back up. That was a successful use of that strategy. I'm not sure I'm ready to talk about gels yet.
Yeah, lots of gels, yeah.
If you're a patron, you get 15% off over at Precision Fuel and Hydration, and anyone can get 15% off at their first order using the code CAPSLOCK T24. That's T24.
Should I whistle through mine? Because
whistle.
This show's all
like the
about
window
you.
In our hotel.
Oh, wow. I thought you left it open. I was thinking, what? Why has she got the window open?
Hey, my hotel room, you were the one that was, Eddie, can I come in your hotel room? Can I come in? If I want that window open, I'll have that window open, you little rat.
It was so noisy, that wind. Oh, my goodness me. But my week feels like, because we're recording this on Friday, so yeah, I'm a bit all over the place, to be honest. It is a bit of a blur, but if we go back, it seems like forever ago, but I did a Muddy Roads Pie and Peas 5K trail race. And it was ace, there's lots of friends, local run, blast out. It was quite high risk though, doing a trail race so close to the marathon. But yeah, I got away with it, kept it in that zone 4. So it was like a threshold run for me. That was basically on the cards for the workout that week. I loved it. No dramas. Got away with it. Loads of mud. Short race. Pie at the finish. But I've still got my achy back. It sounds like I'm sandbagging. I've got my achy backs and glutes and knee. It's all down that kind of left-hand side of my body, really. So lots of foam rolling, lots of stretching, lots of mobility. I do get it occasionally. I'm not worried it's going to hinder Manchester at all. It's just nice this time that I'm not this time in training when I'm not really doing lots of running. Obviously it's taper week, so I can give a lot of time to that mobility. Easy gym session. I did a Thirsty Thursday with the crew. That was good. Just a few miles, some strides. Enjoyed that. Friday long run. I ran to pick up the hire car, and luckily I had all the correct ID with me, because if I got there and I couldn't actually get the hire car, then my 10-mile run would have turned into a 20-mile run, and then going back again, it would have been a 30-mile run on Friday ahead of getting the hire car. But yeah, that was awesome. And then I didn't realise how long the drive to Simbees was. And this is when the penny was dropping, the scale of the race that you were doing, because it just took forever to get to Simbees.
I know. I wanted to go to bed. And you were like, just leaving. And I was like, oh, for God's sake.
I was very mindful of that. Apologies. But yeah, slept on the floor, like we said, wind whistling through the windows. If anybody's thinking about doing the Northern Traverse or the Lakes Traverse, I don't think you can get a better location for accommodation and race start. We'll talk about it in more detail, but if the weather wasn't great, which it wasn't, you didn't just have to stand on the start line shivering away. You just went back into the hotel, got yourself away from all the hustle and bustle and out of the weather. So yeah, if anybody is thinking about doing it, book up that hotel quick, smart. And I was pretty stressed. I don't want to talk about beat so much, but I was really stressed. I get very self-conscious filming, and there's added pressure that this little video I'm putting together has to actually amount to something, has to work, has to be watchable. Normally I do a YouTube review or something, and if it doesn't work, it's like, okay, I'll do it again. They're not going to just do the race again just because I need to create some more content. So,
and you can't go. Can you run past again, Eddie? Can you run past again?
Yeah. Well, I'd nearly asked you to recreate the end again, but no, we didn't. We moved on. But no running, pretty much no running for those few days. But so much time on feet, and I'm absolutely exhausted. But what I did see over on social media, which is interesting, the Lakeland 100. They've asked runners and Lakeland 50, I suppose, to come up with a call sign for the event. And I'm not too sure if they're going to print it on your number. So other spectators and runners can give you a shout out. But yeah, I picked mine. And I think it can only be heavy flex.
It's brilliant.
Gotta go with that. What would you do? What would you go for?
Oh.
Teabag?
No. I have to think about that.
I thought it was a great idea, though. They come up with that. I really, really like that. I'd be interested. They did put a little note on social media afterwards. Like, it literally is supposed to be just like one word.
Yeah. Okay. That's slide. It's good. It's a good thing to think about. I'll have a think about it.
Heavy flex.
Heavy flex. I'd peas on string. That's what I'd have given to you. Oh, God. Well, my week before, Gary, it was a disaster. So we'd had all those ski races with loads of early get-ups. I was really tired. And then I came down with strep throat and spent 2 days in bed with the most horrendous sore throat. I was told I could take antibiotics, but I was really worried about taking antibiotics because of then the knock-on effect that it can have on your tummy. But it was going to be out of my system in 3 to 7 days. So I started feeling ill on the Monday, took to my bed on the Wednesday, and had to leave on the Friday. So I knew I was slowly starting to get better, but I couldn't swallow, I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. I was like, oh my God, this is a disaster. Anyway,
it did mean
it did mean that was actually in bed on Wednesday. And so I did have I was actually proper resting. I didn't run a step for that week at all. And I did start to feel better. But it meant that Thursday, I had to sort everything out on Thursday, pack, kids, everything one day. So it was a mission, but I did it. And I did feel better. By Friday, I was feeling better. Did that have any effect on the race? It must have. It must have still been in my system. And I definitely felt as if I had a bit of a low-lying cold, feel a bit more Pat Busher. But yeah, that's what it is. You've got kids, you've got busy, you're 75%. You're only ever 75% away from some horrible children's snotty illness, aren't you? But anyway, I just ignored it and got myself safely to St. Bees, not feeling like an athlete very much at all. Journey was a bit epic. I was really lucky that my friend Hilary, who we'll talk more about in the story of the race, we travelled together, which is so nice. Travelling makes me stressed, Gary. I don't enjoy it. Travelling to a race makes me even more stressed. Everything, lugging the bag everywhere, getting the right. Anyway, so we flew together, which was really nice. She did fall asleep for most of the flight, and so that was like, I was like, well, this is fun.
That's skills, that is.
And then we had to part our ways to get the train, and there was train strikes on the Friday, and I just bought my drop bag as my one bag, but it has to be a waterproof bag that they can chuck everywhere, so it's not very easy to carry. Normally I have my little old granny trolley bag.
Yeah.
Easy to wheel. But this one I had to carry on my back, and it weighed 20 kilograms, plus then my rucksack on the front. It's a really good look. And that's really aware. I was like, oh God, I'm going to be sore tomorrow from carrying this on my shoulder and stuff. I had to change trains 4 times, Gary. It's bloody bad.
Well, this is all because of the strike.
And every time the stress of... Yeah, every time trying to get a seat because I was like, I want to stand up.
No.
And I had to find somewhere on the train to put my bag. Anyway, I basically just shuffled from train to train, trying to get to sleep because we'd been up since 3 to get the flight, trying to get to sleep. Anyway, got the train into St. Bees. As we were coming along the coastline, the grey of the sea and the waves became apparent. You could hear it against the train windows. It was a bit like in Harry Potter. I don't know if it's the first one, but anyway, the train gets stopped and the Death Eaters come and start attacking and it all goes dark. I was like, oh my God, that's what it's like.
I've never done that journey. Sorry. Yeah. So you're actually literally on the coast when you're coming up on the train.
The last bit is along the coast. To be honest, I was asleep for a lot of it. So I can't tell you how scenic it was, but I did see the last 5 minutes. But anyway, got to St. Bees. Stayed in the Seacoast Hotel, by the way, that Gary was talking about. And yes, it's at the start. It's not a registration. You have a sort of like half a mile walk to registration, but you don't need to take all your stuff to registration. So that that was super easy because I just checked into the hotel and then took out the stuff that I was going to need for registration and then just carried a much lighter bag to registration. It's nice to have a little walk in the evening anyway to shake off the nerves. And then you can have dinner at the hotel too and breakfast. And they do breakfast from 6 a.m. So it works out really well. You don't have to, and it has a tiny little shop next to it. So for fellow tea drinkers, you can get some milk and bread and stuff if you wanted to make up anything or you wanted to just have a bit of extra milk for obviously all those pre-race cups of tea. Anyway, got there safely. We were ready to start, but we're going to carry that bit on in the next interview.
No brew with the coaches this week. But yeah, we will be sitting down with the coaches soon. So if you're a Patreon and you have a question for the coaches, email it into hello@teaandtrails.com. This week, our very own Precision Fuel and Hydration smashing, minstrel chomping, Fanta and tea chugging, Northern Traverse crushing Edwina Sutton spills the beans on her epic coast-to-coast journey. Buckle up, kids. Grab a brew. Hankies, yeah, I'm not too sure if I've got no hankies.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Sure which way this will go. I wasn't too sure when we're going to do this chat, Eddie. It's the Friday now. Normally everything's done and dusted Monday and Tuesday. Thank you. Thank you for scheduling in some time for us. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling exactly how you should feel after one of these mega races. Absolutely broken, sleep deprived. My feet are the issue. The rest of the body is fine. I've got a cold. I think the cold is still ongoing from the cold I had before. It's just coming out as a cold. But my feet are... What is more painful? The massacre that Shane did to my feet at the end.
Goodness me. That's a competition prize, Eddie's bits of foot that were removed.
I'm not sure what's more painful, all the skin he took off my feet, which is very kind. He spent a lot of time working on my heavily blistered feet, which obviously was needed because they were very blistered, trench foot, and so much mud in them. That's actually, the blisters aren't the sore bit. They feel bruised. They feel hammered, basically. 200 miles. There is a lot of hard pack trail, gravel trail, road on that route, especially in the latter halves. But you mix in the mud and the sliding, the foot, the movement of the foot in the trainer all the time due to the ground and the terrain. I think that only heightened then the soreness of the feet. Legs and stuff, I mean, they feel empty. There's no power going through those glutes today. But the legs, the upper body, amazing. The hands, do you remember the terrible tendonitis I got from the poles? Oh, that might be because I didn't have any poles for the second 100 miles of that race, but that's a whole story. But generally, the fatigue is on a off the scale chart. The brain is mush, but I've come out unscathed, basically. Well, so far, but also my ankles are so swollen, my knees are so swollen, I can't actually see if I've done permanent damage. But at the moment, it doesn't feel like there's any damage apart from the body's gone a very long way, and now it needs a It needs a couple of days off. I'm going to give it, 24 hours. I'll be back.
It needs
back out.
6 times 5 minutes next week. Did your feet ever dry? Because I think everybody who's kept an eye on the race, it was wet.
Do you know what happened, Gary? Was my feet never dried. So I didn't want to wear Dex shells because when I wore Dex shells for the recce over the Lake District bit, I got really sore big toenails from because your foot tends to slide in them a little bit on the descent. So I decided to wear normal running socks for the first bit and then put in Dex shells for the bit over 9 standards, which I knew was really boggy. But by the time so they never got dry. But I tell you what happened by the time I got to Richmond, I had gone through a pair of trainers. Fortunately, I had a spare pair of trainers in my bag. My foot was sticking out of the side of a pair of trainers. It had actually rotted through the trainers. So they never dried, but there was moments when your foot would have been dry because then when you went back into the water or into the mud, the pain from the blisters was unbelievable because they got dry and then the water sneaked back into them. And so for about 200 meters out, you thought I had a potty mouth on those couple of bits still. Oh my God, the pain as I would come out of the water. So no, they never got dry. It was pretty much wet from beginning to end, even though when I finished, Shane said it wasn't the muddiest year.
Oh God!
You lied to me.
Were those shoes like kind of new for the event though, or are they some old timers?
No, but they're not old. I think I bought them just before Top Dret, so they'd done a bit of training before Top Dret, and then they'd done the training cycle, and then they'd done the race. But who knows? Anyway, good lesson. Always have 2 pairs of shoes in your bag.
Yes, we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. Should we rewind a bit though?
Yes, let's rewind.
Why, Edwina? Why, oh why, oh why? Did you get yourself on the start line?
Have you been in contact with my mum?
We've got a WhatsApp group.
Why? So we'd done the spine a year and a bit ago, and then I'd floundered around, not achieving anything really, hadn't I? Everything had been a disaster, Gary.
I'm not taking that.
So I'd done South Downs Way, I hadn't done it. I stopped at 70 miles with vomiting. Tot Dret stopped at halfway vomiting. You would think, let's be sensible and do like a shorter distance and get this nutrition down.
Get a bit of low-hanging fruit, Eddie, under your belt.
Why did you need to do that cupping sign with your hand? Why then instead sign up to this and do something mega where the stakes are so high for not finishing again? But I wanted to, Gary, and I thought that I couldn't do it. And so then, of course, I have to do it if I think I can't do it, I thought. But I also think, and I still believe this, even though I feel that the race I've just done was not a very good race, personally, I still think I can be good at these races. I just don't think I've got it right yet. But I know how much work you've got to put into it. Some people seem to be able to do these races like off the back and be amazing at them. But I feel that this is a good distance for me. I feel I'm really good. I feel I've got the real strengths of this distance, but I don't feel I've cracked it. And that's what really excites me now in the latter curves of my life. Like something that I think I can still work on, I can still get better at, and that's still totally, life as a mum, 3 kids, it can be mundane. It can be like, it's all about, washing and cleaning. But putting in something like this, it is a selfish thing to do because you do have to give up a lot of your time for the training and everything. But it keeps me alive, Gary. It keeps me like, this is amazing to be able to go and do this. And then what you take away from having done something like this. So though the jeopardy is high that you might not finish, the actual finish outweighs everything else that you're going to do. So
the jeopardy is so high, you could find yourself on the start line next year or a similar race, and the weather curveball and the conditions just totally transform. So you could be in the best shape of your life. And this is why I find them really terrifying, but really seductive at the same time, that everything could be lined up perfectly. And then, you get a named storm roll in. But
that shouldn't stop your race because that's about management. And that's what these big races are all about, is the management of whatever. And that's also why I love it. Whatever cards you're dealt with, I've got Ian Keith. I love him. I saw him a lot on the course. Oh my gosh, he's absolutely mad as a box of frogs. And he said to me at the end, I got to do the accent. Eddie, I saw the cards you were dealt with in that race. Because I was like, it wasn't great. I got sick again. And he's like, Eddie, I've learned from these races, you can only play the cards you got dealt. And those were the cards that you got and you played them jolly well. I was like, oh, thanks, buddy. He also said, try to train yourself not to eat because that will really help the nausea.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure I'll take that one. I won't take that bit of advice, but I will take that. So yeah, with all these races, like I love the fact that you don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen. It's spicy. It's amazing. So I also love the route of this race. So I knew some of the route, didn't know enough of it as it's going to come to light, but I loved going from the sea to the sea. Just incredible. What an incredible route. Even though doing it, I was like, why would you take us down that footpath? There's a perfectly adequate little lane there. We could have jogged along happily.
Yeah.
Instead, you're taking us down this trench, you stupid. But even better than like the spine up the Pennine Way, going from coast to coast, how I can look at that map now and I can go, I ran that.
Yeah.
I ran across that. Kudos. So yeah, I think the route was a big enticer. I think it's a big enticer for everybody.
Start line emotions. How did you feel? Because it's been such a, we talk about it pretty much every week for the past quite a few months, my goodness me. And then all of a sudden, St. Bees, and you are on the start line. What's going through your mind? Are you a contender?
So I'd had a bit of a rocky lead up to that week. 2 weeks leading up to that had been absolutely mad with the kids. So I didn't feel, well rested, early nights. I felt pretty frazzled. I then had this sort of throat infection leading up to the race, which had worried me and didn't make me feel great. So I was slightly nervous about that. I've had this ongoing ankle niggle that has meant that I haven't been able to run quite as much as I'd want to run. It gets angry when I run too much after my long runs and stuff. So I didn't know. I had to trust that it was going to hold up. I was like, I don't know. Sometimes after 30 miles, it's sore. So am I actually going to be able to cover this distance? So there was quite a lot of fear on that start line, more than confidence that I could do it. I stood there thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. But I had controlled what I could control, and that was the strength work that I had done. So I had no doubt that my body was strong enough to get around that course. I had worked on my nutrition, even though that still came back to bite my mum. I was really happy with my kit choice. I wasn't worried about the weather because I was pretty confident that I could handle myself in the mountains with whatever the weather conditions were going to be, and that I wouldn't be frightened by it because I've been in storms in mountains and sort of knew what it felt like, knew how to keep moving. So yeah, I stood on the start line with a lot of uncertainty, and maybe, Gary, a little bit of pressure. So yeah, standing on the start line, it was like, oh, cool. We started off, oh my God, I think the first 5 miles was one of the worst bits of the whole course. It was on this cliff path. It was so muddy. Everybody was running fast, running. And it was on banks of the fields and muddy and sliding. I was like, oh my God, I was really out of breath. I couldn't get my breath. I saw Hannah just absent. I saw Hannah. That was the end of I saw Hannah. Off she went. She looked great. She stamped off. She didn't jog off. She ran off. And I thought, wow, she looks great. She's going to go for this. A couple of other girls that I was sort of running around. I hate the start of races. I hate those first 10 miles. Everybody's trying to find that rhythm. But the opening scenario of the mud was kind of this is what it's going to be. The mud, we got on a bit of lane, sort of, that was quite nice. It kind of settled down a bit. And then we got back onto the fields and I went, this was the only time I think I fell twice, but this was a brasher. It sort of went round a corner and I learned this on the mud. You can't change direction on the mud, especially at an angle. So you commit to your line as you go downhill on the mud. If you need to turn, you've got to wait till the end of that line and then make a sharp turn rather than try to curve it around. Anyway, I tried to curve around this hill and went absolutely flying all down my side, really hard onto my hip, and then I was just mud everywhere. And this was within half an hour. I thought, oh my God,
goodness.
Everything. I'm covered in mud. My gloves are all covered in mud. I've got mud all down my face, everything. Oh well, we're in it. Off we went. The first section you get your first checkpoint isn't a checkpoint. It was at Ennerdale, 24k in, and I thought, I'm not going to need much water. Anyway, by the time I got to Ennerdale, I was dehydrated, Gary. I drank both my bottles.
My
It was
goodness, okay.
warm. It was warm, and that was quite interesting. In the first days, everybody was like, you were warm, but it was like then it would rain, and then you put your jacket on and off. Anyway, got to Ennerdale, and I was like, God, I'm so thirsty. So I drank a bottle of water, and then I refilled my other bottles up. So that first bit to Ennerdale was really runnable. We passed a park run going. Oh my God, guys.
I was curious when you start hitting the mountains from the Lake District. So yeah, pretty runnable.
Yeah, really runnable up to Ennerdale. I just kept it all really super easy. I was running with a big group of guys, obviously, and they're all like, "Oh, we're probably running too fast. We're probably running too fast." This wasn't running too fast. It was like I think in a course like this, you run when you run. Run when you can run, because it wasn't like we were running up climbs. It was good running. It was easy running. Let's just run. Let's get to Ennerdale. And then you start going around Ennerdale. Oh my God, the path around Ennerdale was foul. It was flooded. Rocks, roots seemed to go on for ages. Couldn't get in rhythm. Quite a lot of people coming the other way. And so then you're like trying to get past people, but you don't want to be like pushy and be like, well, you just wait there while I come.
When did you start catching up the Lakes Traverse people?
Oh, interesting. I think we saw our first Lakes Traverse people just before Ennerdale. And then once I started going around Ennerdale, and there's a long fire track leading up to that first climb, and it's quite lumpy, which made it quite fun, because I was like running and then going, oh, should I start hike that little up? How shall I hike it? Yeah, hike back in. And then I started, there were quite a lot of Lakes Traverse people along that way. And then that climb up from Ennerdale, which was the only climb in the Lake District that I hadn't recce'd, was the first time we felt the wind. So no rain yet so far, but started to feel Storm Kathleen's anger towards us running. A couple of real gusts going up there. It was quite high stepping climb, which I call when you have to do some quite big steps up, and then along the top a couple of real gusts. That was going to be what was occurring, but not at that moment, still quite sheltered from, I guess, what was happening further up into the lakes. Quite a nice descent then down into Borrowdale and the first checkpoint, which was well received. Got to that first checkpoint, Gary. So I'd been eating and drinking quite well, just some like shop blocks and bits of hot cross bun, bits of sandwiches. Got into Borrowdale, had a little sit down moment, cup of tea, had a bit of pizza, and I thought, I do not feel good. I do not feel good. Oh no, I don't feel good. Oh, what do I do? Went and sat on the loo for a bit, hoping that something might occur. Nothing occurred. What do I do? Shove some more pizza down my throat and thought, I've just got to keep moving, even though I don't feel great. Not too long in that checkpoint, and did manage to get some solid foods down. Then we hit the real climbs, and the path out of Rosthwaite, that path, it was like knee deep in water along the fences before you even start the climb. Disgusting water. And then it started to rain up and down, and then it was pretty relentless. Then the rain started coming in, the wind felt strong up the climbs, though felt pretty good, just tapping up the climbs. There were a couple of guys around me that I was sort of like either up front or behind, and that helps keep your rhythm going a bit. The descending off these climbs was really tricky. It was so wet and greasy, and the wind tended to hit us, not going up, though you could see people a little bit holding on. So that's it. There's that little scrambly bit, and the wind was picking, and there was a guy in front, and when we got to the top, he was having a bit of a moment because the wind had picked him up as he was scrambling. You sort of do have to put your hands on the rocks, and the wind had sort of hit him on that bit, and he was having a bit of a moment at the top going, I thought I was a goner. But when you're racing, you kind of can't be invested in somebody else's. You can't be like, you have to be okay. Yeah. Oh, you're right. Well, you're all right. Let's keep going. So it was the tops of these climbs where the wind, you had to plant your poles and make yourself into some sort of human tent to try and keep yourself on the ground. But it wasn't constant. So the wind was constant, but it was the gusts that would suddenly take your breath away. But you just had to don't fight it. That was my inner monologue. Don't fight it. Just try and just keep moving forward, and it will go. It won't be like forever that you're like, So the climb's not too bad. It was the descending that was really hard because the paths were so flooded. So when we did the recce, we did quite a bit. We ran down quite a bit of the grassy bits where you can just run that little bit quicker than down the sort of deeper stony paths. But that was just so flooded and muddy. And then all the rocky bits just had a river flowing down. So it was hard to see where to put your feet. It was slippy. We were running down them, but it was really slow. But you couldn't really go any faster without breaking an ankle. So I don't know. It is what it is. And what I tried to do was we were in a little group of 3 or 4, and I'd just follow the people's feet in front and just try and tick it off.
I met you at Grasmere, and that was like 30 odd miles before the first time I saw you. And yeah, you kind of said you were feeling sick and nauseous then. Did your mind ever go, yes, this is shit, but I've been here before, we can come out the other side? Exactly.
So Grasmere, yeah, I saw you. Is that where Joe from Fawnside Farm Cottages was too?
Yeah.
And we crossed the road.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Okay, lovely. I had a hug from her. That was also where Leon caught me up, my lovely spine friend. And he's like, just dropping off your fisherman's friend for you. He was so strong up the climb. So when we were running on the flats, he was like, Eddie, you've got this. And then, so I was like, well, you could stay with me because I'll run the flat bits and you can come in back. Up the climbs, he's hiking, but oh my God, he was an animal up the climb. So I just watched him dance up that climb away from him forever. And yeah, the nausea was hitting. It wasn't as bad as it was gonna get, but I knew it was brewing. Anybody that suffers from nausea, I knew it was coming. And what do I do with it? I just was like, I'm not. So yeah. So what I've learned is I'm not succumbing to it. I've learned some mental strength now through this as well as to how to not succumb to that. Once I knew if I started being sick, then that's what really slows me down, is that I then just can't stop the vomiting, the gag. Sorry, everybody. Yeah. The gag reflex. So I must keep. So I kept trying. I'd have 2 little bites of something and just be just swallow that and just keep that down. And I'd have to really focus on swallowing that down. Anyway, I sort of forgot a little bit about the nausea because up on, is it Grisdale Tarn, where there was actually waves crossing across. It was absolutely wild. The spray from the waves was offering a free wash to one side of your cheek, and the waves were actually hitting against, and then the splashback was going against the other cheek. It was brilliant. I actually loved it up there. I was it was sort of early evening. It was I having said at the beginning, I wasn't scared about going up out of the mountains in the storm. I've done loads of that. Up there, I was like, this is nuts. I can't believe we're up here in this weather where the wind was it was literally so strong, it would sort of lift you up off your feet and you'd levitate for a second, and then it would just drop you back down. But I was loving it because I was like, this is so cool. But also I was like, holy crap balls, this is the start. This weather is going to take such energy and knock out of you, and you've still got 150 miles. It's not like you're going to jog down into Patterdale now to your Airbnb and it's all over. You've got to try and handle this weather without it overcoming you and without it becoming too big. But in my mind, I was like, crikey, we've still got the highest point of the climb to go. I'm not worried about going up the climb. I'm worried it was the descents on all of these where it was really hard to descend with the wind and the grease. And I was like, I wouldn't go up that climb by myself in the dark on an every day. I'm a mum at the end of the day, and I want to come back from this alive. And I was like, I honestly was like, if it's not diverted, I have to trust that the race organised, there is somebody really closely monitoring that it's up there, because I think I will not put myself in a position. That's why I don't ski really sketchy stuff. I will not put myself in a position where there is a strong possibility that something could happen. So as we were coming down into Patterdale, I was sort of that was at the back of my mind thinking, if it's not diverted, do I go on? Or do I go, I think that's too dangerous. But I knew I would go on, but I was just playing. Let's be sensible.
But your mood was good when you came into Patterdale, because when you left me at Grasmere, wasn't overly concerned. It was relatively early in the race, but yeah, with the nausea, I was thinking, oh my goodness, how this is going to play out. And then, yeah, I experienced the weather up at Grisdale because I went up there, thought it'd be so awesome to take some pictures. And I lasted about 5 minutes and came back down. But then, yeah, saw you in Patterdale and it was great. You were with Tim. I remember Tim from Dragon's Back Race. And you were definitely up and about, a lot more positive compared to the last time I saw you. How did that feel? How did that section go?
Yeah, I was pretty pleased to be off that bit, but also I think when you're only like 2K from a checkpoint, the lift is amazing that you feel you're going to make it to that next checkpoint. So I think I was a bit more chipper because I was like, I'm just about to have a cup of tea.
And what was the Patterdale checkpoint? Like I think it was the people from Silva, they had a pop-up coffee shop there. Is that correct?
They did. I didn't visit it, I'm afraid. I thought coffee would put me over the edge. I'm only about once a coffee. Yeah, it was lovely. Went in there and I watched Ian Keith do his checkpoint drills, and this is definitely something that I'm going to need to work on because I spend far too long in the checkpoints. I think it's also down like I don't really know I know I need to eat something. I don't really know what I want to eat. He just came in, he filled his bottles, he didn't sit down, he like ate a bowl of something and he was out of there. And I reckon I probably spent about an hour in there, not achieving anything really, just putting off the fact that I didn't want to go back outside. Oh, I tell you what I hadn't done, which I didn't load the GPX of the diversion. So once we got in there, Shane was in there and he said, we're going to divert the route. And I was like, okay, I'm super happy about that. Even though it means you haven't quite done that. You haven't done that climb. It was only 300 meters less
still
climb.
A climb. Bordale
Yeah,
House.
It was still a climb. And then actually it was more miles. So we're closing in on the 200 miles. So I was like, oh, it's still going to get a decent climb in. I hadn't loaded the diverted GPX onto my watch stupidly. So I had to then find it, download it, get it onto my watch. So that took a bit of time, all lessons. Headed off with a couple of guys that I'd come down into Patterdale with. Stupidly thought, the diverted route will be easier because we're not going across Haweswater path, which would have been a bit manky in the dark and would have been so flooded. So we went up
Pike, isn't it? That's where they kept you off.
Kidsty Pike, yeah. So we went up towards Kidsty Pike and then sort of hung down on the Tour of Helvellyn route.
Yes. Yeah.
Could we find the pass? There was that. Now we joined up with quite a lot of Lakes Traverse people here as well. So there must have been a group of about 10 of us. Everybody taking their bit of like, oh, it's this way, it's this way. At one point, seemed to just drop down this like. But we couldn't see the path. It's all flooded. There's just water flowing everywhere. And I was getting a bit annoyed, Gary, because the people going, no, it's this way. And I'm like, you choose your way. I follow my GPX and I will go where, don't tell me that I'm wrong. Is that bad? Because I'm like, I'm navigating myself. So if you want to go, it's over that way, you go over that way, but I'm going to read it watch because there's no point taking what someone else says if your watch
you've got to own your own race.
Off course. You've got to own your own course. So I was like, well, I'm going down. You don't have to follow me, but this is the way I'm going. And we all ended up sort of like together. It was just that top bit we seemed to be like, and it's tricky. You're in the dark. There's nothing to see, and you seem to be all over the place. So that was horrible. Through the mud, through the rain, dark, really proper raining, bit miserable now, been out all day.
It really rolled in, didn't it? The rain then, I think.
The rain. So we hadn't been too wet, but that was then really wet. The ground was really wet. It was really slow going. Every like 3 steps, I was going flying. I was getting so angry. It was awful because you brace and then you slip. Met a lovely lady. I don't know what her name was. Anyway, I was having a bit of a low moment. I was starting to feel really sick and I was thinking, this is rubbish. The front of the race is gone. I've got nothing. I know I'm going to have to stop at Shap to get some food on. I'm going to have to stop there and it's over. Like the race is over for me. Not over as in I'm going to stop, but it's over as in I'm not in it. I'm not going to be competitive. And it's... Again, this happens again. So there was a proper pity party going on in my head that all this hard work, all of this. And now instead of running and racing, I'm dealing with nausea. And this lady said to me, she said, I'm just finishing my first 100K. I've never done an ultra before. And it's because of you.
Oh.
Because I listened to a podcast. I was like, I was really taken aback. And I was like, amazing. And she was running so strong. She was doing so well. And she kept looking after me because I started being really sick. I couldn't stop being really sick. She was so kind. And I thought, oh gosh, when you say never meet people that you
Oh yeah, yeah.
inspire. She's met Eddie and Eddie's like, bleh, bleh. Anyway, it flicked something in my head and I was like, okay, maybe this is what I'm here for now. Okay, I'm not going to be here. I'm not racing. I'm not up there. I'm not where I want to be. But this lady, look at what this lady is doing. And that's so much more important than what I'm doing. And I was thinking about the people at home and the kids. And I was like, right. As Ian said, this is what you dealt with. So it was a long road section then back to where then you joined the shittiest path ever into Shap. And that everybody ran away because I couldn't run because I was just being sick. After sick, I sicked up everything the whole day. I was sick on a dead frog. It was a real low point of my race. I was just like, oh my God, because once that vomiting started, I couldn't stop. But I got myself into Shap through.
You freezing cold though then? Because you were moving so slowly?
Freezing cold. Maybe, yeah. All right. Moving so slowly, absolutely freezing cold. But I had that bit that I knew I could. And I maybe like all these terrible races, all the crappy races I've had where I stopped because I vomited. I think this is what I'd learned, and it was a big thing that Britt and I talked about after Tot Dret, was that I pulled it round and we could have carried on, but Bryn obviously had the fear that was going to happen again.
Yeah.
And so I knew I could pull it round. So I got into Shap, walked in Shap, and this is again being on the podcast. Everybody knew who I was the minute I walked in. Eddie's here. And I just had to vomit. And then it's embarrassing because people are like expecting you maybe to be a little bit more with it. And I was just like, where are the toilets? I just need to vomit. But what I did get in Shap, which everybody got, was absolute 5-star service from the volunteers, who obviously everybody was coming in having had quite a time of it. The Lakes Traverse people were just so happy to be out.
The relief on people's faces. Oh, goodness me.
And then the Northern Traverse people were obviously all coming in going, right, you don't have your drop bag here, so there's nothing to change into. But I did have another layer to put on. I was so cold, you haven't got your kit. And so one of the lovely volunteers said, I think it's Dennis, Jim, Mark, anyone I've forgotten, filled my salmon flask with half Coke, half water. And he's like, put them under, I think he actually did it for me, put them under your armpit because that's where you want to get stuck in the walls. The minute he did that, honestly, I was like, started to feel better.
It really works. It's wild.
It really worked. And then he said, well, keep it there. And then when you go, I'll put more hot water in. And then you've got that hot water on your chest. I managed about 2 spoonfuls of rice pudding and then I started being sick again. I reckon it probably took me about an hour and a half to get a bit of food down and to start feeling a little bit better. I had to just, another lady, Heather, she had come and gone. I mean, the other women were miles up by now, and I just had to focus on what was coming. And I knew the next bit. So I knew that it wasn't going to be too high. It wasn't going to be too wild. Little did I know. And I headed out with poor Tim, who I'd been running with pretty much that whole day, that did a lot of Dragon's Back with you.
How did it feel heading out, though? Because everybody came into Shap, looking shocked, and the weather was still minging outside. Yeah, how did you feel walking back out?
I think what I can do, one of my superhuman powers, is I can turn that round. And the minute I started getting food in me and I started coming back to life, I'm back in it. I'm back in the game. So I wasn't frightened. I wasn't like, oh my God. The morale went back up and I headed out with a guy called Daniel, who I pretty much spent the next 24 hours slopping around in the mud with. He was a good runner, but that bit between Shap and Kirby Stephen was an absolute mud fest. It was really hard to run on because it was so sloppy. It was raining. The navigation was not tricky, but it was dark and the rain, it was so hard to find the gates and the stiles. And then every gate and stile on either side had some sort of mud spa swimming pool. It was so slow going. What James and I had recce'd, and we'd pretty much run that whole route. It hadn't been that wet. I remember there would be a lot of the fields had been just dry enough to run on. And look, 3-4 weeks later, it was just almost impossible to get enough traction to make speed up. Hannah obviously managed to. I need to find out how a superpower of the grip over. But I could not get enough traction to move at pace over that. So that was slow going. We caught up with another guy, Duncan, I think, and then ended up sort of all battling our way into Kirby Stephen. Kirby Stephen checkpoint is on the other side of Kirby Stephen. So you come down into Kirby Stephen and we were like, we're done. Oh my gosh, cannot wait. Where is this checkpoint? But it did come and it was light at last. And I was really happy to see my mate, Matt, the park ranger who I'd done the recce with. He was there.
Oh yeah, I miss Matt, yeah.
I said to him, would you have a sleep or would you crack on? And he was like, no, I just crack on. And he's a sleep guy. So I was like, right, okay, I'm gonna crack on. Not too far to Richmond, she thought.
I need to mind you, because I've not recce'd this bit. So everybody mentioned Keld. Every runner that went past me pretty much said, oh my goodness me, 9 standards. Horrendous. Where had you done 9 standards before?
No. So you come out of Kirby Stephen, lovely little town, you run through the town and then you pretty much hit straight up a long climb up to 9 standards, which I knew was coming. Okay. So I put quite a lot of clothes on, but then you jog through town and then it's a long old, quite sheltered climb up on the road. So I stopped about 3 times on this road. And this is another thing that I disappointed myself with. I kept putting the wrong combination of clothes on and I got really hot, but I knew that it was going to be really windy up there. Yeah. So I had jackets and thermals and whatever on. And then I'd be like, oh my God, no, too hot. Oh my God, my gloves. Oh my gosh. And then it would be raining and I didn't want my gloves to get wet. So I put my waterproof outers over them and then it would be too hot. Oh my gosh. So that climb is not too steep. It's long and it's just a really strong hike. The last bit, the bogs were so bad. They put some planks in, but the planks had been like submerged. Like, thank God for all my high box jumps and step ups, because I literally could hardly get my legs out of these bogs up onto the top of the climb. Up on the top, the wind. So the wind blew my numbers off my bag and off my chest, just ripped it like straight off. My hat off, gone. Everything not attached to your body was just like it was so angry. It just like whipped. And you're trying to go through, there's no path. You're trying to go through this bog with like the wind it's like everything, the world conspiring against you to get round. But the recce was so handy because I knew what was coming. I knew that bog where you sort of curve round and I knew where we'd met you on the recce, that then you start dropping down quite quickly. And I knew once we were off the top that it was going to be okay. But I mean, the energy it takes to move through not only bog, but also the wind. And I think this is where Mark Derbyshire lost his will to live on there, because it was really, and I was on it, he was in it on the dark and I was on it in the daylight. So again, you just got to accept that's what it was like. That's what it's like up there. One of my big mantras became, just keep moving forward. Just keep moving. As long as you're moving forward, it doesn't really matter what pace you're moving at. You just got to keep moving forward.
And that's what you said to me in Patterdale, wasn't it? Just keep moving forward. So yeah, Kirby Stephen, 9 standards. And then the next checkpoint, if I'm correct, is Wreath. Quite a lot of miles to cover though between Kirby Stevens.
So you come off past Keld, past the Robin Bench, and then you hit. I was really looking forward to the lead mines, because I'd really enjoyed that bit in the recce. And we were hit. I was still with Daniel now, our little team. My legs were really hurting, and I was finding it really hard to run. And I lost. I think the lack of calories now showed in this next bit of section. I could not get my legs, my brain to get it to run. I'd run like 10 steps and be like, the mental strength it was taking me to run, it was really annoying me. I was like, I'm not walking for the rest of this run. I was like, I'm not here to walk. But I'd settled into this walking pace, and every time I tried to run, my legs were hurting so much. I never had that leg pain in the spine, and I was like, I don't believe this. And so we were hit with a pretty bad hailstorm coming up out of the mines. it was pretty wild. We passed a couple of photographers out on there.
Oh, wow.
Didn't give them a smile, but I was like, you poor guys, this is horrendous. The paths were like, they're really steep, so they drop down like little switchbacks. And again, on the recce, I'd really enjoyed those little bits. Love a switchback. But they were lethal. They were terrifying because the drop off, the grease, you were like, one slide, I'm going down. So we just head down. I got that bit done. And then there's quite a long run into Reeth, which is really runnable. And I was just useless. I just couldn't get my legs to run. They really hurt. It was rocky. Every excuse I had to walk, I had to walk. It was like it was the last 30 miles of the race. I was so disappointed in myself, but I was also like, well, I'd almost succumbed to that. And I'd almost been like, well, that's it then. I'm walking in this race. That's it. And I'd almost accepted that.
You still had Daniel with you then? You had a
still had Daniel. I don't think we were brilliant with each other then. We kind of got ourselves back into a bit of we were in a bit of a fug, and we were both tired and hungry. I was like, come on, let's get running. But he was like, oh. So then I'd be like, oh. It wasn't good. So I knew that. I was like, I think I need to crack this a bit by myself now. Gone into Reeth, and then it's quite a long way into Richmond across, but you're off the high ground. So we came down.
But you were still, sorry, you were happy. You wanted to be cracking it on your own then, but you were going into the night again. I would think, my goodness me, keep company for that.
I was thinking I need to be on my own because I've got to get myself out of this fug, but I knew that wasn't the right point. We would be better off working together into Richmond. Again, tricky nav over really muddy fields into Richmond. But then you slowly start to hit a bit more road. The lights of Richmond don't seem to be coming for ages, but they started coming. And I started a bit more jogging. And my legs, how this happens, but I was like, I'm actually okay. The legs are okay. I started running and I thought, I can run. Oh, I can run. Again, that magical pull of the checkpoint with about 4K to go, it started pulling me in. And I thought, come on, Eddie, get running. And I ran pretty much from once it hits the road all the way. Oh my God, that hill down into Richmond. Do you remember that hill we walked up when we recce'd?
Yeah.
So the checkpoint is near that car park where we parked for the recce.
That would have been tough.
So you go all the way through Richmond, then down this like really steep hill and into Richmond. And I reckon everybody that got to it is like, I think if you get to Richmond and you leave Richmond, it's a bit like getting to Alston at the Spine.
Okay.
If you can get to there and leave Richmond, you've still got a long way to go, but you've cracked a lot of the country. I got to Richmond, and let's be honest here, there was a lovely lady at the entrance, and she said, that's your tent. That's your checkpoint. And I said, no, I'm doing the Northern Traverse, thinking that must be a tent for like the people just through. They wouldn't put us in just this tent, and it was just a tent. It had no heating. It was absolute mudfest. It was pretty miserable when I got there. And then of course you're sleeping in tents, and I planned to sleep. I was like, right, okay, this is what it is. You're not going to get warm. I said, is there anywhere to put gloves to dry anything? No. I'd been through I think I did actually find 2 pairs of gloves in my drop bag at the end, but my thicker mittens, I have 3 pairs of thicker mittens, and I'd worn 2 of them. I'd still had one left. And I thought, well, if that is what it is. When I got into this checkpoint, I was starting to feel a little bit better, starting to think, okay, get your game face on, get back in the race. And the checkpoint people said I said, can I have a sleep? Yeah, there's 2 girls in the tent, they said. 2 girls in the tent. I thought, there's 2 girls in the tent. I knew there was 4 girls ahead of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's 2 girls asleep. And it lit my juices.
You put your sleeping bag back.
I got to sleep. There's no way I can't not sleep here. But if they're still asleep, I'm much closer to them than I thought I was.
Did you ever open up the phone and look at the tracker to see where people were?
Not yet. No, I didn't have my phone even within touching distance for any of this section because it was so wet. I didn't want it to. It was just in my bag. So I thought, okay, I am so competitive, Gary, even just with myself, that I was like, right, this is what I'm going to do. And I packed sorted all my stuff out, got all my stuff ready. And then I took into the tent I didn't change any of my bottom bits, but I took in dry top layers and everything and my sleeping bag. And I leapt into the tent because I thought, if it's me and I hear another girl arriving, I might get up and leave. So I crept in and I changed all my clothes before I went to sleep. So I was all dry. And I set my alarm for an hour. And as I was going off to sleep, it was absolutely freezing, Gary. You're just it was right down by the river. So it's absolutely freezing. I put all my clothes underneath me in my sleeping bag to just try and get the warmth. I put all my hoods up and everything wrapped my sleeping bag as close. Of course, you're so tired. It's not a problem to be asleep. It's actually staying asleep because you're so cold. As I was going off to sleep, I heard the other girls, either girl, I didn't know. I didn't even know which girl, her alarm go off. And she didn't get up. And I thought, okay, interesting. The other girl, whoever was right next to me, was snoring away. So I thought, you're really deep asleep. So I gave myself an hour, woke up, and they were both still in the tent. And I thought, right, I'm going to get up, I'm going to eat, I'm going to be out of here before they even wake up so that Eddie's come and she's gone.
Yes.
They don't need to know I've been vomiting. They don't need to know that my legs are hurting. All they know is that Eddie's come through and I knew that the next bit, Richmond to Lordstones, was running. I knew
a good chunk of it's running, yeah.
There is lots and lots of bits of runnable sections, and I knew, hadn't turned any music on, hadn't turned any podcasts on yet, and I knew all my strength work. I'd been thinking, if I can get to there and I can run that section, that's my strength section. That's going to be good. So I got back in the tent. They were like, "Oh, we were wondering where you were," because I said I'd had an hour, and it had been about an hour and 15 by the time you get yourself up and away. And then I was on a mission to eat, and before either of them came out. Also, I didn't want them to run with me because I thought there's nothing worse. You don't want to be racing. And by this point, can you I just wanted to get out and be on my own and get that Taylor Swift on and start cracking out some of these kilometers. So as I had, can't remember what I ate, must have been porridge or rice pudding or something. And Heather did come out, and she's
Heather,
lovely.
okay, I was wondering who it was.
Heather, yeah, it was Heather. She was so friendly. And I just we got this, let's go. And I left. Bit out of Richmond, could not find how to get out of Richmond. I was like, in a minute, someone's going to come, because I was wandering up and down outside the checkpoint. And actually the path is inside the checkpoint. You're literally on the path, which I didn't realize. Eventually found this river path. So that had been brilliant, because I'd slept. I'd been in that checkpoint for probably 2 hours, and it had been the 1 till 3 a.m., which is the worst bit for me for the nighttime. Once I set out, I was still very much in the dark, following a bit of a tricky path, did go wrong, did climb a few fences, did rip my Sweaty Betty leggings on some barbed wire. But the sun was coming. You see a little bit of light on the horizon, and I was treated to the most beautiful, purple sunrise as I started trotting along. And the most amazing thing was my legs felt fine. What the hell? The pain had gone. Yeah. This is the pain had gone, and I was running. I was looking at so I was taking from Jack Scott. I was like, can I go 8 kilometers an hour, 8 to 9 kilometers an hour on anything that's flat and runnable? So I just turned that bit on my watch, and I was just like, keep it at that pace, keep it at that pace. Everybody starts waking up. I turn my watch on. I'd had to change my GPX track, and for some reason, because I changed the track, the settings were different. So WhatsApps were coming up on my watch, which they weren't doing before, and that was annoying me slightly. But it was lovely.
Was this your Garmin or your Suntour? Sorry.
This is my Garmin. I just used my Garmin. That was lovely, actually, because everybody was waking up and people were messaging going, "You're flying, Eddie. You're moving along." So that was quite nice to everybody. The world started waking up alongside my legs. And everybody talks about how they hate that section. And I actually really enjoyed that section. I put my music on and I just totally got in the zone. I put my head down and I ran everything I could run. After the day before, where I'd just been weak and pathetic, I suddenly was like, I've got it. Was it the fact that I passed the two girls that suddenly was like,
Oh, you're definitely getting an adrenaline rush for that.
I think
definitely.
the adrenaline rush, but it didn't wear off. I kept that running, that ability to keep running then pretty much apart from in the middle of the next night. I kept that. Everybody said, oh, that was the awfulest bit. And I know James said he hated that bit, but actually I really enjoyed that bit. Maybe because the previous bits had been I'd felt so awful that this bit suddenly, when you suddenly feel better, you feel like, even though you're not moving that fast or anything, just the lift of my mood was amazing. And I was like, less of the self-sabotage in my head of going, oh, you're just an embarrassment. What are you doing? Like much more of a, like, you're here, you're moving, the kilometers are ticking off. And then before I knew it, I got to, hate it when people say that, before I knew it, but I got to the A16 road crossing. Was that it?
Oh, 19, A19.
A19. That was terrifying. I'm never bothered normally about road crossings and stuff in big races. Normally keep your wits about you, but it's really, the traffic was going so fast along that road to try and time getting across it. I never want to do that again. That was really,
building the
really
bridge,
scary.
apparently.
Oh, I was like, I can't believe that doesn't have a bridge, because I stood there for a lot. You're out of it. You've been out for 2 nights. I could not tell the speed of the cars. I didn't know when to go. I was like, it was really uncomfortable. And when I crossed it, I had a little cry because I was so frightened, because you can see the cars coming, because it's a really long straight road. You've got to go when there's cars on the road. And I just kept thinking, if I fall or something, I don't have the ability to get up. Or move at speed.
But they're flying. They're doing 60, 70, probably some of them are speeding.
It was
too.
honestly, when I got across it, I just had a little moment and had a little cry, and was just like, I can see why I've read before about people being really frightened about road crossings, and that was really scary. Anyway, and then I didn't realize so quickly, back on the lovely bit that you and Kim and me had such a lovely recce on. Osmothersley, Inglebury. And we start up that climb, and I loved that because I was just reliving, the chats that we had when we were climbing up that climb, and all of the recce stuff that I kept thinking, it wasn't this steep in the recce. It wasn't this long, all up through the woods. What was lovely was here the day before, my friend, one of my best friends out here, Hillary, who I travelled over with, she'd run her first ultra, the Moors Traverse, which had started there and she'd finished. She not only ran her first ultra, but she won it. And I've been running with her now we've been running together about 5 years. So she's gone from just doing little bits of running. Slowly Eddie's taken over her life. And I just loved the fact that she'd come over and she'd done it and she'd won it. And so once I started on her little pathway there, I was imagining so all those people that had run that Moors Traverse the day before and she'd been on that path. And I felt a little bit more connected with moving in towards people, started seeing few more people. I love that section then over to Lordstones. However, I went to so I hadn't had my poles out for any of that long flat stuff. I know I talked to James about having poles out or not having poles out, and I actually was really happy that I did put my poles away a lot. I put them away a lot on the not on the bits that I thought I would put them on the way. So from Shap to Kirby Stephen, I thought I won't have them, but without them, I don't think I'd have got through the mud. But I didn't get them out from Richmond until Lordstones. I didn't get them out, I don't think, at all. Maybe the odd bit of muddy field, and that made me run more. Anyway, I went to get them out, and one of them just fell apart.
How long have you had them for?
They were Brins. I bought them for Bryn to do Tot Dret. Again, this as the cards you've been dealt with, Eddie. You've still got a long way to go. So I tried a little bit with one pole. It wasn't working out for me. It wasn't a good look. I thought this is only going to end in disaster. So I put them back in my bag and thought, well, when I see my drop bag, they're just going to have to... there's nothing you can do. I knew at the end of the spine, I actually wouldn't have been able to stand up without my poles. But I was thinking, I'm much stronger and this isn't as long, so you're going to be okay. So I then ran from all those little ups and downs without any poles. And actually, it was totally fine. Got to Lordstones. I think this was where I saw, there was a little video shot of me of a little bit of light swearing. Got to Lordstones and it was fine. I thought my legs were strong enough that I didn't need the poles. again, thank you for all the strength work, because without that, but I did know that there were the quite short, sharp climbs coming up without poles, but actually those were the least of my worries. Got to Lordstone, saw the lovely Robin. I'd lost all my numbers; they'd all blown off, but she'd made me a little "I Love Tea and Trails" podcast poster, so I stuck it on the back of my bag. My phone had fallen out somewhere between Richmond and Lordstone, I don't know, into a bog, and it had gone dead and it wouldn't charge. So I was like, oh shit, I think you could, you've got to have a phone. Anyway, when I was like, who's a good tech guy of one of the volunteers? And this young guy, I was like, you're young man, can you get my phone? Anyway, he was useless, but a lovely older lady was like, I can get it to work. We managed to get it to charge by like sticking the lead in and then like holding the lead with a hairband.
Okay.
It did charge, and it was like all the anxiety. And also I was thinking, that's a long way to go without being able to listen to any music. There's something else that I learned that I need to wean myself off on, that I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a long way to go through another night in silence with just myself. But we did get, again, so long at Lordstone's checkpoint, fanning around, trying to get my phone to charge, not wanting to leave, and probably wasted about another hour and a half there that I...
You would, though. It's good. You mentioned about the poles breaking. I suppose if someone has got the luxury, they own a spare set of poles and you're thinking about a race like this, then yeah, chuck them in your drop bag.
Anyway, I did. I chucked my poles in the drop bag and left them there and took off my... it is what it is. It was definitely a race of this is what it is, accept this card that you're going to deal with and then get on with it. Left Lordstones, really creaky and really sore feet leading Lordstones. And I knew those couple of 2-3 climbs up ahead, the descents were going to be pretty sore coming off those. Yeah. And I knew up ahead was my nemesis, Blakey Ridge.
It's a long climb up, isn't it? You cross the road, don't you? And then you climb up to Bloth Crossing and then hit Blakey Ridge. Yeah,
there's a couple of climbs. You go yes. But none of the climbs seemed too long. I actually quite enjoyed the climbs because it's a change of rhythm, and I felt good and I felt strong. Right, I'm going to share something. This is overshare for you, Gary, but it's really important for the women out there to hear this. When I got into Lordstones and I went to the loo, I realised that I'd got my period, which wasn't due for like another 10 days. But this happened to me on the spine as well, and I think your body goes into like total shutdown, and it goes, well, if you've got a baby, it's not going to survive because your body must go into the sleep deprived, like massive calorie deprived, like massive HRV drop. I'd left the checkpoint without any facility, without any tampons or anything, and thought, well, I don't think this will be all right. I'm just going to carry on. I'm not going to worry too much about it. Again, I've just got to deal with this and get on. So it was okay. I ran then up, but I was very aware as I went up towards Baker with the photographer came up and he was filming me from behind, and I was thinking, oh my God, I've just got my period and this is going to go out on those daily catch-ups. Anyway, I have to share that with you because I knew that other women out there would get that and they would fit, and I was just like, can this get no pole? Don't worry, got my period, no ball.
That's wild though. So it's literally just your body thinking, we're only going to do what we need to do.
It must be. Anyway, Blakey Ridge came and I knew there was about 4 guys just ahead of me. They'd left like just before me at checkpoint. And I was like, I wonder if I can like catch them. But Blakey Ridge of the like 3rd degree, how long is it? 400 miles long. I couldn't even see anybody on it. And I was just like, it all looks exactly the same. It's like this brown, barren. I kept seeing rocks thinking, that's somebody up ahead. Anyway, again, this was a part I'd thought about in my training and in my strength, and I was going to run the whole thing. And I ran the whole of Blakey Ridge. I put my timer back on my watch and I put my music on and I ran to the Lion and Pub. That pub honestly was 544 miles away, but it seemed to take forever. The mental power of keeping moving along that section. It's funny, this race has real sections which take, like, I loved all the climbs. I loved all the bit in the Lake District, the bits that you don't expect to have to really dig deep, like that bit, it was just so horrendous and seemed to take forever. And you still keeping the morale up when you know, even when, wow, I'm trying so hard to get to this pub. What's at that pub? Absolutely nothing. A left-hand turn and then more bog and another long slog to Glaisdale. Like,
I misunderstood. I thought there was a physical checkpoint at the pub. I got it totally wrong. There was nothing
how
there.
Wonderful that would have been. But anyway, got to the pub, got there, and then I hadn't recce'd this anything then now to finish, and that was a mistake, because had I known what the next section would have been like, we're going into the dark now, and the rain started coming down. I didn't know where I was. I seemed to be going on and off a road. Lights were everywhere. So this is going into the third night now, with probably I've had about 45 minutes sleep, really. Lights were like bobbing like in the horizon. You think, is that head torches? Is that like people over there? And actually, I think it was, because the path sort of like zigzags back and forth quite a bit. So you can see different lights and things, but it takes you off into the most horrendous bogs, and then suddenly brings you back up onto the road. And you think, I'm sure we could have just stayed on that bit of road. It seemed to go further. Anyway, I seemed to cross a couple of bogs, and then I hit this track, which is probably only about 6k to Glaisdale. That was one of my lowest sections of the race. I could not. I just lost. I absolutely lost all reasoning with myself. I was running, but the running was it was like at this shuffle. That was definitely, if you'd walked.
Well, you're well into your third night, aren't you? I can't imagine how exhausted you've been.
I just couldn't, I was crying, Gary. I was just crying, thinking, why is this checkpoint not coming? And that's the first time I got my phone out, the tracker, to see where this checkpoint was. And I thought, it must be soon. And I tried to count the kilometers, and it was 8 kilometers away. What do you do with that? Well, how do you deal with that?
I was put your phone back.
I was like, oh my God. I just don't think I can do that. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Anyway, you don't have a choice. You do it or you stop. So I started my diet of Baby Bell and mini Kinder chocolate. And I was like, right, take control of yourself, Eddie. You've got to get yourself to this checkpoint. So I had like half a Baby Bell and a square of mini Kinder chocolate on rotation. And I just was like, keep chewing, keep it down. Started. So the daytime I'd stop feeling sick. The daytime I didn't feel sick, and then the nighttime would come and the gag would start coming. But I was like, I have to force this down. This is where I tried the Precision Hydration caffeine gel, because I thought, let's try anything.
Roll the dice.
Let's roll the dice. The dice is rolled. It wasn't a great dice. I did manage to swallow it, but I was like, I can never, ever, ever do that again. So that didn't work for me. But the cheese and chocolate diet seemed to keep the steady string. And those Ks were the slowest Ks. I thought, what was coming up? What event? You don't see Glaisdale at all. It's a tiny in the middle of the nowhere place, but you don't see any lights or anything. So you don't even have anything to work towards. And suddenly a head torch appeared, and it was one of the volunteers come to say, it's down here is a checkpoint. And my God, I would have snogged her if she'd let me. I was so happy to see her. And she said, the other guys, they've just arrived at the checkpoint. And I thought, do I quickly go through this checkpoint to leave with them? I don't know whether that was the right thing to do, or do I, because I've been on my own pretty much the whole day now, do I stick with this on my own plan? What do I do? Anyway, by the time I got to checkpoint, they'd already gone. They were in and out like rats. So that was decided for me, because I'd got my period, which I thought I could deal with. I don't know how. I had got the worst chaffing, Gary, in my nether regions that has ever been known to man. It was so bad. When your kids have got nappy rash? Yeah. It was much, much worse than that. So I just had to go to the medic. Look, fortunately, not that I would mind if it was a man medic, but I think the female medic would just got it more. And I said, look, I've got my period. I haven't got anything with me. And I've got horrendous chafing now. Chafing? What do you call it? She was so lovely. She was too kind. I was like, don't show me kindness. I just need you to help me out. She was like, do you need me to come and look? I was like,
It's too much.
No one needs to see this. Anyway, she was trying to be like all secretive about it. I was like, honestly, don't care. Just give me anything you've got. So I got some facilities, but she gave me this, we used to use it on the kids. It's Metanium nappy rash cream. So I lathered that. It went everywhere, all over all my clothes, but it also went all over the areas that were in a terrible state. Because I thought this could be race ending. This could be race ending because it's so sore. And I've still got, I mean, it is only 24 miles from there, but I think that's probably the hardest bit of the course, that last section.
I remember Brody Sharp, he mentioned about like blisters physically not being a serious injury, but it is literally a legit 10 out of 10 pain. So yeah, like you say, it could be race ending.
Again, as in everything that happened in this race, it was a case of this is what's been dealt. I've got to deal with it. I didn't deal with this early enough. And now I'm in a situation that I could have not been in. And also, but I've got to try and help myself. Don't just ignore it, help yourself. So I came back to life in that checkpoint. And also I was really relieved at that checkpoint to hear how everybody else had arrived in a terrible state. Everybody's arrived in a terrible, because you think you're the only one, deeply suffering, and everybody's flying along and everyone's feeling great. And they were like, everybody so far has arrived at this checkpoint, of which there's only about 10 guys ahead of me, 2 girls, 10 guys. Sort myself out. 3 or 4 amazing cups of tea, soup, toast, suddenly I felt really hungry for the first time in the whole race, ate a lot. And then I just said, can I just have 10 minutes? Put my head on the table, best 10 minutes ever had of sleep in my life. Heard, Eddie, it's time to go. I was like, oh no. No.
Another 10.
Another 10 anyway. 2 other guys had come in now, but they were going to lie down and have a sleep. And I was like, do I stay? And the guy, one of them, you met them at the end. They said, he said, I'm running home now. I know the path. Should have perhaps stayed with them again. But again, I was like, I want to be a warrior. I want to be out there by myself. I don't want to finish thinking I've relied on other people to get me to that finish. I want my dot to have carved its own little path.
Oh, I don't know. Other competitors, I think, tag along. But yeah, you tread your own path.
It's different as a woman, Gary. It's different as a woman because people would say maybe, I want to be out there being a woman of... Come on, Eddie. So left by myself, made that decision, left by myself. And also I didn't know where the other girls were behind me, how they were doing, how they were faring. Do I want to wait 10 minutes? Could it be the difference between 3rd, 4th, 5th place? Got to keep moving. So left racing. The next bit, the path was absolutely sodden all along by the river, disgusting. Every time I would go on a really bad path, I'd go, it can't get any worse. This is a joke. It can't get any worse. And it was just absolutely an absolute mudfest.
This is on the way to Gromont, is it?
On our way to Gromont. Yeah, really slow going. Middle of the night. It's raining. I don't seem to be able to get moving. Keep taking my gloves on and off, keep stopping, keep trying to find something to listen to on the music, keep doing anything not to be moving forward. We hit a couple of really long road climbs. Again, I don't know where I am. I'm like, what? Why am I going up this 33%? It said on the sign up the hill out of Gromont. Where am I going? What am I doing? And this is when I started checking the tracker because I thought, am I in this? What am I actually still in this race? Am I on the right path? Have I turned around and I'm going the other way? And I started thinking, I think I've gone the other way. Anyway, that was quite good. I checked the tracker and I could see then, okay, I've got to go up this really long road and then I'm going to take a right and I've got what looks like 2 big moor sections and then I'm going to hit the road again. And that sort of helped me a little bit knowing what was coming up. But it was so slow. It was saying 20k to go on my watch. And then I seemed to do honestly 2 or 3 hours worth of movement. And then it would be 19.7 and I'd be, are you joking? It was so slow. The box was so slow. This is where I think if I did it again, if you could hit that section in the daylight, it would be much easier because you'd be able to see the path through the bogs. Rather, I was just constantly, my wrist is sore from constantly trying to look at my watch and trying to find the path and stopping.
Imagine hitting that section in the daylight and then crossing the A19 at nighttime. 2 different...
It swings in roundabouts, doesn't it? Whatever section you're going to do them so good. I went over 9 standards in the light, whereas I probably would have been in the dark. So, but I did... Now I know that section as well. Gosh, knowledge is such power thinking of doing this race, I would definitely say you do want to recce every single bit of it so that you do know, because it just played tricks with my mind so much that I wasn't on the course. I wasn't going in the right direction, that it was a joke. This is a joke. It can't be going on for this long. Anyway, eventually got across these two long bogs, and my head torch started flashing at me that it was going to die. Not a panic. Okay, let's get the spare battery out. I just had 4 little mini spare battery packs just at the top of my bag. Let's get those out. Let's change that. As I got them out, they hit the floor and they rolled away down into the bog. I was like, oh my God. Don't worry, I had on my other head torch, but then I had to anyway, as I was fumbling around with this head torch, the 2 guys behind caught up. I could see their head torches for quite a long time behind me, slowly catching on me, and I was allowing that to happen. I know. I was like, I need that now. I need some company. I need somebody to pull me out of this. Anyway, they were full of beans, and Michael was actually about to hit seeing his house. How cool is that? He was about to really get on familiar territory. So that was exactly what I needed. Having just said, I'm a woman, I'm a warrior, I could do this by myself. I was like, I just need company. We went through all these like funky little woods, through this hermitage. This guy was playing drums. It was out of bar. I was like, this is weird. This is tripping. He had been having this like fire thing, and it was all very strange. We went the wrong way. Did he look like a druid or
anything like that?
Yes,
or just
he was totally. He was some sort of hippie guy. We went, having Michael said, I know all the way. So I was like, phew, for like 10 minutes, I'm not going to have to look at my watch. He dropped us down the wrong path, and we ended up the wrong side of the river. We had to climb up vertical bank.
Michael, to get back put you under a bus here.
He's already sent me a message apologizing. I followed him. I was like, no, I stopped looking at my watch. Yeah. It's all cool. It's all fine. It's all part of it. But I dropped one of my gloves going up this bank. But then we got to the top of the bank. I was like, oh no, got no glove. I've only got one glove. Nope. My favorite mittens as well. Maybe Michael will go back and see if he can find it for me. As we started getting on, as we came out of this woods, and you really are then starting to smell the sea. You can start to smell the sea. You can start to see the seagulls. The other guy that was with us, he said, I've just seen 4th place woman. She's right behind us. And I was like, oh, what? I have been in third. I fought for that third really hard. She's right behind us. He said she's just clicked that gate shut. So we're climbing up out of this hill, out of the woods. We're looking back, and we can't see her. And I'm like, are you sure it's her? Yeah, I'm sure. She's got the pink top on. She runs loads around here. I was like, I'm pretty sure she's from Ireland. I let myself believe it. So I said to the guys, right, I said, I'm running. I'm not giving this up now. I'm going. And they were like, Eddie, we're on it. We're going. Michael said the next bog is the worst bog of the whole race. It's horrendous. It's about 5 miles worth of bog. Not something to say to somebody who is pretty tired and emotional. Anyway, we ran across. It was brilliant that we thought this girl was chasing us, because we ran across that bog like 3 possessed musketeers. We absolutely, in the scheme of things, we didn't, but we didn't. We then ran. We ran all the way to Robin Hood's Bay from there.
It's amazing how it focuses you, doesn't it? That bit of adrenaline,
and
running scared,
whatever it is. I love the way it focused the guys. Yeah. They were like, they'd been hiking along, and then they were like, oh my God, we're being chased. It was both awful, but also like it was like, come on, let's do that. I was like, I'm going to run. I'm going to run as hard, as fast as I can. My chocolate and Baby Bell diet was still going in. If she catches me, she's stronger in this second bit. She's just stronger. Yeah. There's nothing I can do. But I'm not going to give up. I'm going to work. I'm going to work and work and work. You come over the top out of the bog. You run a little bit of road, and suddenly you see the sea. And we saw the media team, who we'd sort of seen on and off throughout. And she was, they're so lovely. Those girls are so lovely. Like, Eddie, you're so nearly there. It's just down here. And I was like, what? It's just down here. I thought there was 6K to go. And she was like, oh, yes, there is 6K to go. I was like, don't mess with me like that. Michael had said, like, the last 6K is absolutely horrendous. It's going to be so muddy. And he'd made me fear it a little bit. He'd said, it's really steep on the side of this cliff. And I was like, oh, my God, am I going to plummet to our death? Anyway, we were so lucky as we came around these cliff paths. They were absolutely muddy. This was the only bit where because I didn't have poles, I couldn't actually get up the hills. So the guys had the poles, so they would slip into a power hike using their poles to get up the mud, and I could not get up the mud. I was like having to hold the fence and the brambles to like pull myself up this mud.
Oh, someone should have filmed that.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I was like, and then I was like, God. There was no traction. There was no power left in the glute. Anyway, we were so lucky. The sun was like, it was this beautiful warmth of the sun. The guys were still on this mission. I looked back, I could not see her along this coast path. And I thought, do you know what? I want to savor this last couple of K. If she catches, she catches. But I could not, we hadn't seen her. So
he gave you some dodgy intel.
He's going, if she's that close, we across the bog, you could see for like 3 or 4K. Yeah. I was like, we didn't see her. So anyway, I thought the boys ran on, and I thought I'm gonna just take my time here, and saw Steve with his drone. So I did have to start. Look,
Hi.
Hi there. But I thought I'm just going to enjoy this moment, and the fact that the sun was shining as I came into Robin Hood Bay, where the sun, I don't think I'd seen the sun for the whole of the trip, and then wiggled our way down into the beach, and it almost seemed a bit surreal that you are going from can you believe you've gone from one side of the country to the other, all that had happened between all of that, and you end up on the other side, and there you are, and there Hillary is, and there's Mark, who I last saw in Shap, and Andrea, who I last saw in Shap, and they're all there, and it almost seemed like it wasn't time to finish. It was like, this is it, you know, you're done, you're finished, and a real a mixture of emotions that, oh, thank gosh I finished. Oh my God, my feet. Shane was like, come down to the sea. I was like,
it was a very low-key finish, wasn't it? It was quite a very quiet. Sometimes I visualize a finish as being a bit of razzmatazz.
But I really liked that my precious people were there. Oh. Shane didn't realize he was one of my precious people till he spent 2 hours on my feet, and then he realized that he was. You know, it was lovely, and I knew that Mum and Dad and my sisters and my friends were watching on that webcam, so it felt like a real warmth, a sense of warmth and a sense of finish. I'm still processing like how I feel about about having done it. I finished and I didn't think, yes, incredible. I'm so pleased with that, because I'm not sure that I am pleased with that yet. Will I be? Is it too soon? I made too many errors. I didn't trust in myself. I let myself back off too much. But I learned so much about what I am capable of. And I definitely, in the spine, I didn't push myself as much as I did in that traverse on sections.
Okay.
I definitely didn't work as hard as I suddenly realized that I could in the traverse. What I saw Hannah do was do that work rate right across the whole country. That was what was incredible, was she was able to hold that racing hard effort right across. And I flitted in and out of that with some bits good, but quite a lot of bits.
I don't know Hannah's story, but you did have to deal with some nausea. Obviously, you're deep in the trenches, you roar about it. But my goodness me, problem solved. Got to the finish. You're on the podium. You're here. You're able to talk about it and reflect on it, and you know it hasn't kind of totally put you off doing these things.
No, do you know what? That's what's amazing, is that it's given me this fire that, if I can cope with jeopardy, if I can cope with what that was, I want to get better. I want to get better at all the other the things that aren't fitness related, all the other bits that I could still do better. That perhaps in the spine, I had no idea that I could, because I do think at these really long races, it's learning on the job. Definitely what I learned from the spine, I don't think I'd have done the traverse like that if I hadn't been out in the spine on multiple nights by myself. I didn't hardly hallucinate. And I think that's quite, like, my mind, I think, was stronger. It was less frightened by being out in the dark by myself. Definitely, I saw in the traverse glimmers of things that I could do better that I didn't see in the spine, that now I'm thinking, I just feel it's a bit, how do I describe it? This isn't the end. That wasn't the end for me. That's it. Yeah. I got to that finish line at the coast and I thought, I got to do that again. I've got to do that again. I feel like oh, so much didn't play into my hands, but I didn't play my card, even though even though the cards I dealt with, I used them, but I don't think I used them in the right way. But I do feel that I could use them better. So yeah, I'm really happy, obviously, that I finished, but I feel unsatisfied.
I think it's a big advantage being a man with those multi-day events running through the night. Like, I literally wouldn't think twice about it. I have no like vulnerability issues, and I don't think men probably fully appreciate how maybe a woman like a woman on her own.
Yeah, because I said to you, didn't I, that I felt like on some of the, you are on quite a bit more roads than you are on the spine, and I felt. Yeah. I did feel I had to really be strong within myself and not feel vulnerable. Cars are passing you at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you are on a tracker, and people can see where you are, and you have to be. That's a good point. You have to be strong and manage that slight frisson of fear all the time. That you're safe.
What a treat! It was such a pleasure to watch everybody traverse the moors, the country, the dales, and the lakes. Yeah, I thought every one of you warriors, that the weather that you went through, day 1 and 2 in particular, that night leaving Sharp and coming into Sharp. And the Patterdale, you're asking questions about the route change, you're going into the darkness. Yeah, do not underestimate an April race. It's it could throw a real wild card. Yeah, just a complete treat to see all the people on the checkpoints from Dragon's Back previously. Just think you're all warriors.
I just like, as a couple of big thank yous, I'd like to say, those other girls out there that kept me moving. Hopefully my little dot kept you moving as well. Amazing performance by Hannah to come second overall. An incredible time in those conditions. To Heather and Leanne, who we back and forth shared some miles with, you guys are incredible. To the guys that I ran a little bit with on and off, kindness, but no extra kindness, just morale. And to the volunteers, what an incredible load of people the volunteers are. They could not do enough for you. They get you into those checkpoints, and you are a demanding toddler, probably a little bit rude and ungrateful, and they just bring you tea and love and kindness and reassurance that you can do it, and that then they tell you you're amazing, you're doing amazing, you can do this. Giving up so much time and energy. Every single person is invested in. Their journey is invested in. Nobody's more important or less important than anybody else. They are absolutely amazing. From right from the start, from the kit check right to the end, I was shown nothing but love and kindness and support. And that is exactly what you need on something like that, when you are the route and yourself are the biggest enemy, and you need people to keep reminding yourself that you're doing it. And that's what Shane has created such an incredible group of people. The way that whole race is managed, that's down to him. That's down to him and his team, and the ethos he's made is you are in safe hands. And I think when you give your dreams to somebody, and you're giving yourself, and you can do that because you know that they're watching you and that people have got your back. And so that's a big lot of love and thanks to all the volunteers and Shane and the team.
They are the best of us. To give up a week so we can race. And they're not all there gaining credits for future races too. They just love it.
I would do it. I said to you, didn't I? I said the minute the kids are, I'm going to be there. I cannot wait to give back to that. What an incredible experience that would be.
So you think you did allude to it. You think you'd do it again?
I would definitely do that again. I have got unfinished business with Mr. Wainwright. I don't know in what shape or form. I obviously, you do the race. Funny because lots of people do the spine and they're like, I'm going back straight away. And when I did the spine, I was like, oh my God, never again. Yeah. But this one, I'm like, I want to make peace with some bits of that route, but I also I felt very at home on that course. I felt like it was a really wonderful place to be, which I didn't get on the Pennine Way. I felt like I would happily spend more time on that course, wrecking that course, more on that course. And I loved taking my little pebble from coast to
Yeah.
coast, and I'd like
You know
to
what
do
I
that.
thought? And I could do this if I ever did the race as a northerner. I could, if I'm going to take, I like to give, I could take an East Coast pedal west and then a West Coast pedal east. I think I'll do that if I was ever
God, you're going to do the double.
out and back. Yeah, has been a treat, Eddie. Thanks for, I knew it wouldn't disappoint. Thanks for sharing your story. Is it too early? Is it too early to ask? Are you cooking anything up? What's next?
Cooking anything up. Anything cooking up is peanut butter on toast. I'm gonna have some time off now. Some time off life. We got some pretty big life changes coming up in our family, so I'm gonna focus on the family and enjoy my summer in the Alps. So we were already planning some recce's. My mates are doing TDS, quite a few mates. So we're gonna run the
Sweet.
TDS course, and I'm just gonna enjoy life for a few months without the pressure of. I went from South Downs Way to Top Dret to Winter 200 to this. Even though those races weren't brilliant, I still did training blocks. And there was a race on the horizon. I don't want anything on the horizon for a few months. I'm going to let that come organically. I'm not saying I'm not already thinking about long-term plans, but for the next few months, I'm just going to let myself have a little bit of downtime.
Quick 5. It would be rude if we never did a quick 5,
It
Eddie.
would be rude.
Okay. You have the choice. Which one would you prefer to do? Spine race. Well, it could be winter or summer spine or the Northern Traverse.
Northern Traverse every day.
I don't want to, I'll ask it, but do not think that any other checkpoints have been devalued. Did you have a favourite checkpoint, Northern Traverse?
Oh, can I have 2?
Yeah?
Shap, the guys at Shap who turned Eddie around, couldn't have loved them more. And Glaisdale for the love that was shown for Eddie. It also had a stage at Glaisdale. You know
Did
me,
you want to
I
get
was
up?
like, a little bit.
Get the jazz hands out. Okay. Head of Paramount Pictures has been on the phone to Shane. They're asking for leading ladies. Who's going to play you, Eddie? Who's going to play you in the movie?
Cameron Diaz.
Didn't
/
hesitate.
that French actor Gérald Dupont, I think his name is, with the big nose.
Oh yeah, Depardieu.
Depardieu. I'm going to start off as Cameron and end up as Depardieu.
Awesome. You talked about listening to music a few times.
I sang the whole of
playlist?
the Phantom of the Opera from start to finish.
What a treat.
including some of the high notes. I listened to my, you get that repeat playlist on Spotify. I listen to that a lot. Okay. Same old tunes coming up again and again. You don't really it doesn't really matter what you listen to, does it? I just needed noise, and that's something that I need to work on is not having the noise. And just settling into my own brain. Maybe I do need a bit of work with a sports psychologist, I thought, because my brain played a large part of that. The positivity of my brain meant I was moving positively, and the negativeness of my brain meant that it really slowed me down, the talk. And I think maybe some work on that without relying on music to pick me up, relying on myself to pick me up.
Oh, I think you did awesome. Like, I remember you saying, we've been here, we've been in the spine. You knew you could come out of it. Yeah. But I think everybody, again, you said this also, there's points where you don't want everybody to be going through shit if you're going through shit, but you do. You
do. At Glaisdale, when they were like, everybody's in a terrible way, I was like,
yeah.
Come
but
join the
if you're
party.
feeling, you do know there's a good chance if you're feeling rotten, then a good chunk of the field are feeling rotten too. Anyway, talking about music, that brings us nicely onto our Instagram story. Music, you know the drill, Eddie. Every week we'll share this podcast over on Instagram, and you get the choice. You can choose the Instagram story music.
A bit of a strange one, but obviously a lot of the stuff that I do, I've got my kids in the background. Kids are 2 years older doing this than when I did the spine, so they are 2 of them are teenagers now. So they're much more aware, they're much more aware of what's going on. They're tracking. They're a huge motivation for me. And my oldest one, who I know I've told the story, his skiing journey before, and he has been incredible this season. with his sport. He was the lowest of the low in his ski rankings. The coaches said, "You're out of here. You know, you're not gonna. You haven't got the funding." And he carried on, and he carried on, and he ended up at the top of the rankings, finishing in one of the highest ranks in the France Championships in the club. He worked and worked and worked his socks off, and he never gave up. And he said to me in the car the other day, he was like, "Mum, do you know Eminem?" And I said, "Finley, I think this before." "Yes, I do. He was a pop star." Anyway, he is a pop star when I was young. He said, "I love him. And Mum, I love this song." And he played he played Lose Yourself. And he said, "I listen to this, Mum, before I do my races." So I thought of him a lot when I did it. And the lyrics are really, I can't believe I'm crying over Eminem's song. But the lyrics, you know, it says you get one shot. We don't just get one shot. But when you're out there, that is your shot, and you do have to deal with what you got. And I thought about my kids so much. Blakey Bridge, going into Glisdale, I was like, I know they're watching my dot, and that dot's going to keep moving forward. And I can't go home with them going, "I gave up. It was too hard. All this went wrong. It wasn't where I wanted to be. I wanted, you know, Mama's got to show them." She goes on to them enough about, you know, never giving up, keep on trying. And they've shown me that. They've shown me that. And they've shown me that through sport, that they've got what I've tried to instill in them for the last 15 years. Sport has given that to them. Bryn and I's parents have given that to them. And so I'm so proud of that. And so that's the song. That's what it meant. And I did play that a number of times on repeat along between Richmond and Lordstones. Eminem, that well-known rapper, he accompanied.
Lyrics, though, he's a bit fruity with his language, but that is a perfect song.
We gloss over that. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for all your support, all your love out on the trails. I did find it a little bit overwhelming at times. I'm sorry if perhaps, you know, you popped up to say hi and I wasn't the most friendly, wasn't the most engaging, ran past. It meant a lot to me of the love for the podcast and the love for everybody out there. If you did the race, kudos. If you want to do the race, all I can say is give yourself time, that you're prepared for it. Make sure you've got enough experience to do it. But do it. If it's there and it's nibbling away at you, I would definitely say. It hasn't got the extensive kit list that the Spine has. It's got a lot more running. It's got a lot of variability. So if you like climbing, it's got that. If you like running, it's got that. But it also has got that. You do need to be autonomous. Is that the way? The checkpoints are a long way apart. You do need to be able to look after yourself. So it's got everything that you'd want for in an adventure. So if it's something that you think about, I know entries have opened now, ready for next year, but don't rush into it. Make sure that you're building your timeline up to an event like that. It is expensive. You're building your timeline and your experience up into an event like that. But if you're in doubt, you think you're ready, go on, sign up.
Oh, I knew you wouldn't disappoint, Eddie. You can tell a story. And if that has whetted your appetite, if you like the sound of the Northern Traverse or any of the traverses, actually, there's quite loads of them, or any of the area events, they've got a nice big cookie jar to choose from, but you find it hard to justify the cost. I appreciate they're really good value for money, but I appreciate they are expensive. They do a volunteer situation. Not 100% sure on the deets, but you can earn credits for future races. And I know that last week's guest, James Nobles, who won the 2022 Montane Dragons Back race, he was a previous volunteer at that event. So yeah, definitely check that out. And it must be awesome because I saw loads of Dragon Back race volunteers volunteering again at the various Northern Traverses. So it must be awesome. You will be exhausted. Wow. You're there for best part of a week, I suppose. So if you've got the time and you fancy that, you would definitely not 100%, you will not be disappointed. Everybody that I spoke to were just having the best of times. Yeah, shattered, but the best of times. Strava, as expected. I'm going back to the league table this week because I didn't want to spin the wheel and then we didn't talk about anybody who was towing one of the various lines. So I've gone back to the league table. So yeah, it is SILVA Northern Traverse Heavy over on Strava. First up, Ian Brazier, 204.1 miles covered that week. A total of 3 runs. Longest run, obviously, 193.2 miles, 25 minutes a mile average pace, and a total elevation of 33,855 feet. I saw Ian on the start line, so it's great to see him get to the very end. Second up is Graham Templeton with a total mileage of 192 miles. He only did 1 run that week. Come on, Graham. But yeah, his longest run was 192 miles. Another successful traverse with an average pace of 30 minutes and 56 seconds a mile. Total elevation of 32,000 feet. Obviously, there's a bit of variation with everyone's devices. And last on the list is Ilona Morgan. I did see Ilona on the start line. We actually got a selfie with Ilona. Total mileage of 202.9 miles, 3 runs that week, and longest run of just under 192 miles. Average pace of 26.55 and a total elevation of 36,637 feet. Great to see that you got to Robin Hood's Bay too, and kudos to everyone who towed the line at one of the various traverses, lakes, dales, moors. You really had to be there to appreciate just how filthy the weather was. I don't think explaining it on the podcast will really just express how filthy the weather was, especially as you headed out into Patterdale. But yeah, we'll touch on that later. Kudos to all the volunteers too. Yeah, a small army kept everyone fed, watered, patched up, packed them off, kept them safe, and dished out a bit of TLC and maybe a bit of tough love too. And another bumper week of merch on the trails. I really did feel the love, and I imagine you did too, Eddie. All the snoods out there, t-shirts too. It was really, really heartwarming to see everybody repping tea and trails during the various traverses. Tales from the trails.
I'm a couple of weeks late listening to the podcast, but just wanted to say how much I enjoyed listening to all the recce talk about the coast to coast. We walked this as a family back in 2018 when our children were 14, 12 and 10, and it was one of our best holidays. With so many memories, and listening to your exploits brought it all back. A freezing trek down from Honister in the pouring rain to the campsite in Rossthwaite, where the site owner was waiting to show us the dry spot available. The long slog along the banks of Haweswater, which seemed to last for days, before speed marching into Shapt, the New Inn Lodge, just in time for our dinner. That's where we stayed too. We camped in the garden there, along with their chickens, who would roost in the loo if you left the door open. Squeezing into the campsite in Reeth, along with hundreds of mountain bikers there for a festival. And the never-ending curve of the old railway line in the New York moors in the last 5 miles to the Lion Inn at Blakey Ridge, which never seemed to get any closer. We loved our walk. Not sure I'd be able to run it. Best of luck for the race. It's a magical route, Kate Platt. Oh my God, I got the shivers. I got the shivers when she started talking about Blakey Ridge. I want to go back there. Oh, happy memories, Kate. Love it. We love sharing your tales from jails. Keep them coming in. Please email them to hello@teaandtrails.com.
Would you like a 5-star review, Eddie?
Would I? Come on.
Legends. I've been listening for a couple of months now and the content is superb. Love Brew the Coach section and Tales from the Trails. How hectic Edwina's kids sporting is and Gary's marathon prep for Manchester. Very informative podcast. Keep up the superb work, guys. Oh, what emoji is that? It's like
something with the kids. She's down with the kids.
Down with the kids, yeah. Find me in the peaks via Apple Podcast. Thanks for that. Thanks for all your lovely comments over on Spotify too. And if you can spare a minute or two, it'd be awesome if you left a review. It helps loads. Spread the word and get our podcast in front of more trail runners. Competition. Hellfire Events are supplying the prizes this week. 2 free entries to one of their backyard ultra events. Events take place in May, June, August and October. So lots of choice and it looks awesome. And it's the world's first and only backyard ultra inside a prison, and it is 100% inside a prison. I was on their social media page and it definitely looked like a prison. Barbed wire, big walls, fences, everything you'd expect. I didn't see any inmates.
You'd know you spent enough time in them.
Oh my goodness me, I'll be terrified if I ever ended up in prison. But if you're a legend page,
you wouldn't last. I'd totally last. I'd make my own crew. Well, I'd be there. I'd have my own no.
I'd be ruined. I'll put that in. If you are a legend, Patreon or above, then you don't need to do anything. You all go in the hat. Everyone else will need to like the competition post over on Facebook, share the competition post too, and make sure you check your privacy settings because we can't always see who has shared the post. I said it was going to be winners picked at random on the 15th, but I was a bit ahead of myself. Need to give this competition a bit more time. So winners will be picked at random on the 22nd of April. Good luck and thanks, Hellfire Events.
When is that race?
Well, there's lots of them. There's one in May, there's one in June. You get a May, June. Oh.
Sorry, they're all the prison ones. They're all in the prison.
Yeah.
Geez, so don't worry. You've got no excuses if you win.
Not a lot is going to happen running wise. Trying to catch up on sleep. I mentioned earlier, I really feel like I've done a race physically and mentally. I feel like it should be feet up time and enjoying food and time with friends. But no, I've got to keep a little bit focused ahead of Sunday. Lots of mobility. 3 days in the car. It ravaged my
Gary.
50.
Oh, Gary.
51. I'm only 50, so I've robbed a year there. Yeah, it did take its toll on my body, but I didn't run. So I wonder in the flip side, because if I was at home doing my normal stuff, then my temptation to run would have been a lot greater. So I'm probably no more fatigued than what I would be normally, just super tired. Yeah, even this morning when you text about doing the podcast, I'd literally just dragged myself out of bed. And I've been
up for 3 hours, Gary. I'd done 3 school runs, walked the dogs, 4 loads of laundry. I'm waiting to record. Gary's like, I'm a bit tired. I've just got up.
No excuses. But I did think about the Northern Traverses when I spoke to them, and they were like, after the race, I'm going to sleep in the van, then I'm driving back home to Birmingham or wherever. Woof, I just not too sure. I'm super lucky if I ever did toe the line for that race. That it's about an hour and a bit drive home from Robin Hood Spur. But yeah, people will have noticed over on Facebook, I shared a little snippet of a potential Northern Traverse movie. I am working on that.
I just said to Gary, I just checked, I said, this isn't a movie about me, because that is my worst nightmare. Can we just? I've already seen some stuff you put on me at the worst angles on Instagram, which I think I should have had sign off permission.
Clickbait.
You just clickbaited me. I feel a bit abused of that you shared some.
Apologies. Sorry, I didn't want to hit you with all those questions.
I didn't. Also, like, there was a bit of swearing from me as well, because I wouldn't know. Mainly I saw you as it would be approaching a checkpoint, because nearly always checkpoints are where it's easy to insert, isn't it? And then you go off and you're in the wilds again.
I don't think anyone's going to judge you, Eddie, after running over 100 miles and through the night, 2 nights. I think we'll cut you some slack over the F-bomb. Twice. But yeah, I'm putting it together, and it's not going to just be about you. I was so fortunate to spend lots of time with people over the 3-4 days. So there's lots of little stories, just catching up with people, how they're doing. And also because you kind of you were following my journey, once you get into the depth, you kind of you saw the same people, the 3 or 4 guys ahead of me, a couple of people behind you. You're kind of in that little bubble of sort of 8 people, aren't you, that you see? You'd be like, well, that's why I missed the end. That's why, it comes up quite a few times on the Facebook group. I had one job. What was I doing? Where was I at the end? And because I did get a little bit invested in the 2 guys who just came in before you, they was childhood friends, and then, just parted ways through life.
And they were lovely. They were the night I met them. Anyway, yeah, we'll have talked about that. But you got some amazing footage of them, and I love that. And so, all good.
Yeah, but I'm just curious, how long would someone's attention span be to watch a movie like this?
2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes.
That's just the intro. That's the teaser. So yeah, hopefully coming sometime soon-ish, we'll see. I'm waiting for super fortunate that I'm going to the people over at Aria Events are going to let me use some of their content, because I didn't get as much as I would like. So when that comes through, I can start hobbling all together. Yeah, hopefully make something that people like watching. And that would be awesome. Also, still working on my New Balance version.
Always hustling.
Still working on that review. So I don't think that I think my priority is get this podcast out, because we are recording this on a Friday. So this is obviously going to go out late, get this Northern Traverse movie done, and then any New Balance review. That will follow on after that. That is my week. Oh, yes, and I got a little marathon to run on Sunday.
Oh, my love. Hey, listen, if anybody deserves a good marathon after what you just did over the last week, it's you. You were selfless last week, making stuff for other people, trying to share an event for other people, encouraging other people to get on the trails. And so you have given a little bit of yourself last week that, yes, might not be there for the marathon, but, you know, baby Jesus works in mysterious ways, and he might go, you know what, Gary, I give you an extra little slice of the pie, a little bounce.
Today's your day.
Today's your day. You never know. Maybe I've inspired you as well, Gary. I know that was on the tip of your tongue to come out, but you've seen some suffering, you've seen some pain, you've seen some whining. So,
yeah, my goodness me, I can't have any excuses, can I? There's people going to suffer a lot more than I will in the Northern Traverse. So yeah, if the chips are down, I'm going to channel some of that grit that I saw over the grit and determination that I saw. Still unsure, actually. Do I set off the full ego for 3 hours? Or do I just go for the kind of 3 or even? I'm saying that as if 3:05 is easy. I'm not even sure if I can run 3:05. I think I could run 3:10.
I'm not even sure you can run a marathon, so I think let's just set off and see what happens.
So I really don't want it to come across like it's sandbagging. I am completely. I've had loads of messages of support from friends saying that, yeah, I've got this. You know, you've trained really hard. And when I look back and reflect on the training, apart from maybe leaning a bit too much on the treadmill, yeah, I've done pretty well. I can't argue with that side of things. It will be what it is. And I love the marathon, even though it's really brutal and it's unforgiving. You can't hide on the marathon. It's there. It's all out for everybody to see. And if I come away with, a good for age time and I'm unlucky in the good for age ballot, then that's kind of out of my hands. That was the goal for this, to reach the good for age standard. If I'm not touring the line London next year, then I'm sure there's something. We've already talked about maybe a possibility of something else for 2024. We'll see. Thanks to Precision Fuel and Hydration for sponsoring this week's show. And if you would like to give them a go, you can use code T24, 15% off your first order. And thanks to our partners and patrons too. We couldn't do this without you. I'll try and do you all proud out there this weekend.
Oh, you will. Be kind to your future self. Breathe and believe. Progress, not perfection. Keep your shield high. Narrow your focus, Gary, to the end of that road. My name is Eddie Sutton.
And I'm Gary Thwaites.
And that was episode 66 of the Tea and Trails podcast.